All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's pre-lock show for NBA. And yeah, we're ready to get this slate with a nice six gamer. How are you feeling, Brandon?
I'm feeling pretty good. I do like a couple games on this slate, but there are a few ones that are kind of iffy to me. So, kind of 50-50 for me.
Yep. And a good amount of injury news to go along with it. Just another day in the NBA streets. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And yeah, good to see y'all in the chat. Phil, Jonathan, Cujo, Harlock. What's up, guys? Good to see y'all. We're going to go game by game. And then if you all ask questions when it aligns with the game, I might touch on it. Other than that, we'll touch on questions at the end of the show. We'll start off with the Cavs going up against the Celtics. This is a game that has the highest total on the slate, but historically, these are two teams that we don't usually like to play guys against. So it's just one of those spots that feels a little weird for me, at least so far. We do have quite a few Q tags. Karis LeVert is questionable. Isaac Okoro, questionable. Dean Wade's out. Strus is out. It doesn't really change too much. There's no news updates there yet, right? They're all still questionable, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. So that is news that will change some things for me, but how are you thinking about the Cavs so far?
First off, I'll say just as a fan, I'm very excited to watch this
Yeah.
game. Top two teams in the Eastern Conference, and it very well could be the Eastern Conference Finals. So, really hoping this one doesn't disappoint. But aside from that, I do love the ownership on both sides of the ball here. And I know when people see the Celtics, they kind of worry about that matchup. But I mean, we just saw the Raptors put up like 120 something points. So
Very true.
um, I am targeting a few guys here. So I put a 5% man on Garland, Allen, and Mitchell. Those three are just kind of um, the three that are more consistent. Mobley is a bit too expensive for me, and he just that upside hasn't really been there as much as these three other guys. So I did give Mobley a thought, but I just didn't pull the trigger on him. So wanted to target at least a few pieces from the side of the ball.
Yeah, I really like the Cavs tonight, not going to lie. That's been a common trend. Kind of like you're saying, though. The Celtics, we think of them as an elite defense, but they haven't been elite this year. They've been good, though, so they're not bad by any means. Uh, Ultimately, it's the total that's driving me to force exposure here. I am attacking with the backcourt. I love the low ownership, and you might have mentioned it. Yeah, you're matching the field on Garland. I'm going to be over the field on both Mitchell and Garland. I just like the spot for both of them a lot. And so I'm forcing that exposure. Like you, I wanted to take a shot on Mobley and Allen or one of them. The ownership is nice, but the price tag is hard to get by. If maybe Levert or Okoro, one of them end up getting ruled out, I'll consider taking a shot on them just because of the slight increase in usage. But I don't think it will impact things enough for me to get overly excited about them. Anything else you want to add here with the Cavs?
I will say if Levert gets rolled out, I'll consider Ty Jerome when he gets the minutes. He is a pretty solid player.
Oh, okay.
And then if Okoro is out, I would consider Nang because him as well. When he gets the minutes, he won't do anything spectacular, but he can do enough to at least pay his price tag off.
You're not wrong. You're so right. It's just painful. These guys, every time I see their names, even Strus, who's not even playing, just all these bench Cav players, they've brought so much pain over the years. But that's my bias. I think you're right. It's good to at least mention them, and definitely some viable plays there. Phil, you're right. Donovan Mitchell time, man. We're at it. Wait, Brandon, what did you do with Mitchell?
5% for now. I was considering a 10 on him and Garland.
I was like, I knew you at least had exposure there. Dixon, good to see you. Ready to lose money on these bums? No, we're not going to lose money. We're going to make some today. It's going to be a good one. William, you're right. Last night was not the best for me, but it wasn't awful. This season, though, has been really, really good. And so hopefully we can just keep the positive momentum going is what I'm shooting for. Yeah, it's going to be a good one, Phil. Mo, good to see you. Jonathan said, best DOM settings new to NBA. No worries, man. We got you covered. For those of you who are wondering, what is the Domination Station? This is DFS Army's optimizer. Feel free to click the link in the description. Use promo code BDUBB, BDUB, for a 10% discount for the website to have access to the Domination Station and the Discord where we continue to provide support there. The domination settings for NBA is super simple. We do make changes and tinker a bit more with NBA than you do for other sports. Brandon is showing you his screen right now. Really, the only thing we do is tournament mode, 150 lineups. That's it. Nothing else. Don't get cute.
Nice and simple.
And then Mega Royal, no, Brandon's not a Cavs fan. Are you? You're just a fan of the game.
Yep, fan of the game.
Love it. Tattoo, I see you, man. We'll get there to those single entry plays. Y'all, you're already on it. Is it positive leverage to fade this game? KG, I don't think so. I'm not going out of my way to fade it. If it happens naturally, it's fine, but I wouldn't go out of my way. What are your thoughts, Brandon?
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah. All right, sweet. Next up, we have the Celtics. No real new injury news here. Pretty much the same old with Porzingis out, but that doesn't matter anymore. What did you do here, or did you force exposure to anybody?
Yep, so Tatum I didn't have to force. He's showing up like around 25%, so I just put that man on him to make sure he doesn't fall below that. And then I did put a 15% man on Brown, Holiday, and White because, again, it's highest game total on the slate, and I do think this would be super competitive, and it's just a game where I want the stars on both sides of the ball. So, and they're all at a decent price as well. So I do love those four guys.
Yeah, it's hard for me to get mad at it. I mean, I think that thought process and philosophy is one that we're typically both a fan of. Highest total, we want to force exposure to it. Unfortunately, none of these guys really stood out for me too much besides Tatum. And even Tatum, I don't love his price tag, but I did put a 25% min on him just to kind of make sure I'm at least over the field. I'll be comfortable going a little bit higher than that, but Tatum was the only guy that I really saw getting there. I don't think you're ever wrong to force exposure, though, to Brown, White. And that you do anything to Drew? Yeah, it looks like you did. So I think you have the right approach, but for me, I think Tatum was the only guy I could look at on this slate from that team. Next up, we have the Hornets going up against the Nets. This is when things get a little bit grosser. We have the lowest game total on the slate, but a close spread, which is not something we can say about the vast majority of these teams. The bad part, though, is the Hornets are healthy, and most of the teams, as we go further into the slate, are not, and so hard to get overly excited. Trey Mann is listed as questionable, so if that changes, that can have a small boost to some of the guys here, but like you can look at Martin, maybe a small boost to Miller a little bit in usage, but yeah, I wouldn't get too excited about it. It looks like you're forcing some exposure to guys. What's your thought process here?
Yep, so first I'll start with LaMelo. I didn't do anything with him, and that chalk kind of scares me as well, but after tweaking my exposures, it's going to suck if he smashes. But as you guys can see right here, I only have 1% LaMelo. So I do wish he was a bit cheaper. Yeah. But I'm just going to other spots tonight. So I'll be way under that chalk. Yeah. Now, I did target Grant Williams, Brandon Miller, and Miles Bridges, mainly because not too concerned with Brooklyn's defense, and then Claxton is out now too, so even softer matchup for the forwards on his team. So all three of those guys, mainly Miller and Bridges, they have some really nice upside at a cheap price tag. So I just wanted to make sure I got some shares of those guys.
Man, it's so nice to have a fun basketball team to watch that you're a fan of. I haven't been able to experience that in a long time, really a team of mine. But this Hornets team is a lot of fun to watch, and they're keeping games close. And the matchup against Brooklyn isn't awful, like you said. I don't love the matchup for LaMelo, so he's also someone I'm not forcing into my lines. He's showing up in about 11% naturally, which I'm fine with, but don't love it. But I am going to follow your lead and put that 20% min on Miller. I'll put a 15% min on Bridges. And then I never love Grant Williams, but I'll be comfortable with like a 13% min on him. Just kind of make sure he's showing up in a few lines as well, because they're not showing up for me naturally. And so I'll make sure that happens. Grant Williams was around 7%, but just because of his price tag, I want to see him show up a little bit more in a matchup like you mentioned that's just not bad. Next up for the Nets, when it comes to injury news, like you mentioned, Claxton's out. That is a boost to some guys we don't typically like to talk about too much. Who are you looking at here for the Nets?
Yeah, everybody pretty much, I'll say. I mean, this isn't a team that ever excites me on playing, but all these guys are just really cheap, and it's against the Hornets who suck defensively. So should be a pretty fast-paced game, and I think a lot of these guys can pay their price tags off. So I did nothing to these top 5 guys right here because they're just showing naturally. So I will say I'll have a lot of Finney Smith. He will be a core play. And then Schroeder, too. He'll be a core play. And then Simmons, I'll be around field weight. And then Zaire, a little over the field as well. And then only manual change I did was 15% on Cam Thomas. Mainly, he can be streaky, but it is against the Hornets, and I like his upside in this game. So I did put a 15% min on him.
Yeah, William, I don't think it's a bad approach by any means to fade this game. I have a lot of exposure just because it makes sense for me looking at their price tags and some of the injury news that's going on with these teams. But I don't want to do it, so I definitely understand it. And I see some of the questions in the chat. We'll get to these as we get towards the end of the show. But for me on this slate, like you said, DFS is showing up a lot. Dorian Finney-Smith, I don't love it. I am going to cap him at 70, 60%. I just don't want him showing up in every single line of mine. We know how gross that can be. Schroeder's fine. The matchup against the Hornets is really the only reason why some of these guys are very viable. So I'm not going to over tinker Schroeder out, even though he's never a guy I get overly excited about. Ben Simmons isn't showing up as much as he should, which is such a weird thing to say. But he's only showing up in about 9% of my lines. And so I'm going to force him in, put a 25% min on him. It looks like I saw a question about someone asking about what does a min do. Phil said, when putting mins on guys, you leave the max at 100% when you get... Oh, well, yeah, sorry. I saw this. But, I typically leave maxes the same unless I don't like how much of a guy I'm getting, kind of like how I just put a 70% max on Dorian Finney. It's rare I force a min and a max on a player. Schroeder core, yep. And then Zaire, I'm more than double the field on, which is fine. Cam Johnson, over the field on him. And then, like I said, I'm forcing exposure to Ben Simmons in this soft matchup. But wouldn't shock me if this is a night where I'm just really mad at Ben Simmons. That tends to happen. And then what were your thoughts on Jalen Wilson? Is he showing up in any of your lines?
No, he's not, but he was a guy I was on the fence about. So I'll keep giving him some thought. But with more minutes to go around, I wouldn't be surprised if he was somebody who did well. So I don't hate that play.
Yeah, he didn't stand out for me too much either. He was only showing up in about 1% of my lines, and I was just curious because I had a similar thought about maybe looking a little bit closer at him as a guy that might go overlooked. But moving forward, we have the Nuggets going up against Memphis. The Nuggets, man, they just can't catch a break here when it comes to injury news. They are without Jokic, which we knew, and Aaron Gordon is out for a while. And so that puts us all in a situation where Dario Saric is out, or not out, but very, very viable on this slate. Is it Saric or Saric? Like, what is it, or is it all wrong that I'm saying?
I always thought it was Sarge.
Sarge, yeah, I have absolutely no idea. But I do know I never love playing him, but he just makes so much sense at this point, right?
Yep. Yeah, I definitely love him tonight. He's been really solid since Joker's been out, so he will be a core play. I didn't do anything to anyone else here, but just a few guys that I don't mind playing here is Christian Brown. He's been solid and at a decent price. Jamal Murray, I'm around fill weight on him. He really hasn't stepped up like he used to when Joker is out. So I don't blame anybody who wants to kind of fade that chalk, but I'm still willing to play him. And then I do have a little Strother showing up too. Nothing crazy on him, but he's just another cheap value piece that's kind of in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the argument of the increasing usage and the increasing usage with Jokic gone. That's part of why you're forcing exposure to some of these guys. And I don't think that's wild by any means. Did you consider Westbrook at all?
No, he sucks. And if he was cheaper, I would play him, but not at 5.5K.
Yeah, and I'm surprised Sarge isn't like seeing more. Appreciate you, Steve. I'm surprised Sarge isn't seeing an increase in price after we've seen him exceed his value in multiple games at this point. But I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to be mad about it. I'm just going to continue to play him. I think you're right on Jamal Murray. The tough thing is in both of these games where Jokic has been out, he's had some tough matchups. And I know we don't think about Memphis we don't typically think about them as a good defense, especially against guards or anything, but they've been pretty good this season. And so I can understand why he's been struggling. In the game before that against the Pelicans, we know they're a pretty good defense. So I think if his ownership was lower, I would be all over it. I'm going to hope he struggles one more time in this tough matchup, but it wouldn't shock me if he does better. Did you look at Michael Porter Jr. at all?
Not tonight. He's just been a little too inconsistent for me at that price tag, so I won't have any of him tonight.
It's scary, but I like it. I like it a lot. I really do like Michael Porter Jr. It's weird. He doesn't really see a crazy increase in usage with Gordon and Jokic out, but we've seen it happen before where he gets hot in these matchups, especially if they can shut down Murray a little bit. They depend on him to score. And so I like being over the field on him. And then we already talked about Sarge, and Brown is another guy who's showing up a good bit for me. Over the field on him. Jamal Murray, I'm right around field weight. Strother, right around field weight. And Russell Westbrook is showing up in 1% of my lines. And that's about it. I'm not going to do anything else to force him in. For Memphis, when it comes to injury news, let's see what we're dealing with here. We have Zach Edey out. Marcus Smart, questionable. Jaw's been out for a good bit and will continue to be. Who's standing out for you here?
No one, really. I don't like this team at all. The only one I was really considering was Desmond Bane. So if you wanted to play him, I wouldn't mind that. If Marcus Smart is out, I may reconsider a couple spots here. But, yeah, overall, no one is standing out to me here.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus Smart gets ruled out. Might be Scottie Pippen more viable. Luke Kennard we're looking at. I don't know. I agree. Not my favorite spot, but could make things a little bit more interesting. So far, let me double check. There aren't any Memphis Grizzlies showing up for me aside from 1% Jaren Jackson Jr. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Not looking at them. Next up, we have the Pelicans going up against the Mavs. For the Pelicans tonight, when it comes to injury news, CJ is still out. All these guys have been out. There's no real new injury news. Who are you looking at here?
Really just one guy for me, which I'm going to change this to a 30 because it looks like his ownership went up just a bit. But Trey Murphy, I love him, 5,600. He looked much better last game, so I'm willing to be around fill weight on him. Brandon Ingram, I don't hate it if you want to play him, but that price tag just keeps creeping up and a little concerning for me. And there's just other spots that I like a bit more. But I wouldn't tell you not to play him if you wanted to target him. And yeah, no one else is really standing out. I do like Brandon Boston, but his price tag has gone up tremendously. And Jalen Noel used to be a decent value piece, but his price is going up as well too. So not a huge fan here.
Yeah, I don't really love anybody here, to be honest. Trey Murphy's fine because of his price tag, but I still don't love the game environment and or matchup for him too much, but he's fine. He's showing up only in about 17% of my lines, but I'll do another run and confirm that here soon. But like I said, no one's standing out for me too much here. Next up, we have Dallas, the Mavericks going up against the Pelicans. Big piece of news here. Luka Doncic is questionable. That honestly could put this entire slate on its head. We know, like, playing Dallas players when Luka gets ruled out can be a little hit or miss, but this is one spot where I would really like Kyrie, really like Clay, and consider maybe one of like whoever starts at point guard, but we'll see. But assuming Luka does play tonight, who are you looking at, if anybody?
Just one person for me, Derek Lively. He always scares me when I play him just because of the way they split the minutes with Gafford. And then you have Kleba back in the mix as well. So that is a bit concerning, but he's seeing the most minutes out of those two. And 4,400 is just way too cheap. And then Pelicans are still kind of weak down low and missing like a true center. So it's just a spot I don't mind attacking at that price. And then no one else is really standing out for me. Overall, just another ugly team tonight. Unless Luka is out, then different story, of course. But for now,
very different story. Kyrie probably becomes a core play for everybody and their mom. But I am struggling. Like you said, Lively he should be seeing more minutes for this team, but they just refuse. I get they have decent other options and they probably want to keep the team relatively healthy so there aren't too many injuries that happen here, but it's hard for me to trust his minutes at this point. I don't understand why Gafford's 4,900. That's a little wild, but yeah, for me, it's going to be a hard pass. Let me double check that no one's sneaking in the lines. Yeah, no one is. 1% Clay, but nothing worth talking about. Yeah, I'm not looking at the Mavs unless Doncic gets ruled out. The Thunder, a team that has a relatively soft matchup going up against the Spurs without Victor Wembanyama. Curious to get your thoughts here. I know we got the news that Isaiah Joe is out, so that could make things a little bit more interesting, but what's your thought process here?
So Lou Dort didn't have to do anything to him. He's showing up a good chunk, which I don't mind with how he's been playing. He's usually a guy that I'm scared to play and super volatile, but ever since Chet's been out, he's been stepping up big time, so definitely don't mind that play tonight. Jalen Williams, I am targeting him for the fact that Wemby is out, and I don't think Zach Collins will be too much of a challenge for him with him playing the 5, so I do like him and his upside. And then SGA, I say it all the time, he's just a guy that I just put like a 10% min on just because he has crazy upside as well. Not the best game environment, especially since they could easily blow him out, but never play for that. So just threw a 10% on him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'm with you. I want to force some exposure to the Thunder tonight, especially with this being a bit of a softer matchup than it looks like on paper. So that's something that projections don't usually pick up on. Sometimes it does, sometimes they don't. And so that's one of the reasons I also want to force exposure here. It's funny how different Lou Dort and Jalen Williams just look on the court ever since Chet's been out. They just look like they have more energy, look better on defense and all across the board. They really embrace that team mentality, which I don't know. I'm not really an OKC fan, but I'm happy for them, maybe. So yeah, I have a 15% min on Jalen Williams as well, 10% min on SGA, just to kind of get him in the mix of studs. And then Lou Dort is showing up in 43% of my lines, so significantly over the field there. If Caruso starts over Wallace, I will want to be over the field on Caruso, maybe around 10, 15%, but we don't have that news yet, so I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens there. But for now, we're just going to have to wait and see. So yeah, I like the Thunder tonight. For the Spurs, like I said, Victor Wembanyama is out. And so with Victor out, Devin Vassell is questionable, right? Or did we get that news yet?
Don't think we did yet.
Yeah. So him being questionable is also a pretty big deal. That will impact usage rates for the team, which is already a little weird with Victor being out. And it just makes their guards more viable because they do not have any great guard options outside of Vassell. I mean, there's Chris Paul there, but he's 6,200. I'm talking about the other guards outside of Vassell. They don't trust these guys, and who the hell knows what they'll do there. We could see guys like Malachi Branham get a bit more use, Trey Jones get a bit more use, Champagny get a bit more use. There's some interesting plays there. But for now, assuming he plays, who are you looking at?
Only two guys for me. Zach Collins, of course, which it looks like his ownership went up from earlier. So I'm okay with having 20% of him. And then I did force in Bassey as well. He should back up Collins again. I think he played like 22 minutes last game, and he was pretty solid. And then if it does blow out, then he'll benefit from that. So 3.4K, I think he can be a very sneaky value play tonight. I don't hate a play on Castle or Champagny, but I didn't pull the trigger on them.
Yeah. They're guys I'll be much more excited about if Vassell gets rolled out. OG, this is a good point. This is the NBA Cup slate. We'll have another one on Friday. Points do matter for these teams, and so maybe they blowout won't put these guys on the bench as much, but I haven't seen enough data points to know if that's going to be a thing or not. Does the NBA Cup being a thing change anything for you on this slate, Brandon, or what's your thought process here?
Not really.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I really don't think about it too much. It does sometimes change the intensity of games, but I don't really think it matters too much from a DFS perspective. These guys are still playing one way or the other. Let's see. Last game on the slate. Jazz against the Lakers. Tied now for the highest total on the slate. Not seeing too much ownership from this game, though, so far. For the Jazz going up against the Lakers, Walker Kessler's out. That does impact things a little bit, but did anyone stand out for you in this spot?
Yep, I don't like it, but Jordan Clarkson chalk.
Yeah.
Clarkson chalk is one of the scariest chalks. I feel like he's let us down many times in situations like this. But with that said, he is at a good price and tied with the highest game total on the slate. So I'm willing to possibly be burned by him again. So hopefully he doesn't, but it is what it is. And then John Collins, of course, who's been really solid since Kessler's been out. I did put a 25% bet on him just to be slightly over the field. I do like him quite a bit. And then I did give Markkanen a thought again, but probably won't end up getting there just because he's just been really bad so far this season. It's kind of sad, but
yeah. And it really doesn't make sense. I don't get it. He's had one 50-point game, which was great against the Grizzlies earlier this year, but outside of that, we have not seen upside from Markkanen. His price tag's going down a bit at 7K. What do we need from him to reach value? 7 times like 6. We need 42 points. Matchup isn't the best going up against the Lakers. So, yeah, hard to get overly excited about that, but I agree. I wanted to at least think about it a little bit more. I wish his ownership was lower, so I would consider it even more, but at 10% ownership, I don't think I can get too much leverage on a guy that I don't trust. John Collins, are you getting much of him?
Oh, yeah. I put 25%, man. I think I'm actually getting 30%.
Yeah. I have a 20% min on him just to make him show up around field weight. And then Jordan Clarkson, I don't know. I don't hate him. I don't have this fear in my heart. I know he's burned us before, but there's a lot more players out there that I never like to see as chalk. Clarkson's not one of them. I feel like he typically comes through for me more often than not. Maybe tonight's the night I get to feel the pain that everyone else usually feels, but I don't know. I like the spot for him. I usually like playing guards against the Lakers, even though they're not overly bad against guards. It's a pretty neutral spot for them, but I like it. High game total, should be at a pretty fast pace. Like I like Clarkson a lot. He'll be a core play for me. And let's see, do we have any other Utah guys showing up? Yeah, it's really just him and Collins. Nobody else. All right, last team, we have the Lakers going up against the Jazz. This is the side of the ball I want to force exposure to. Who are you looking at here?
The obvious two, AD and LeBron. They're both playing really well this season, and I love them. So AD is a core play for me, and I'll be slightly over the field on LeBron. Matchup is just too good for both of them. Reeves, I want to like, but I just don't like his price tag, to be honest. I don't hate it if you want to play him, but he hasn't really shown too much upside to surpass his value. So I think I'm slightly under the field on him. And then only other play I'll be getting to, and it's if Rui is out, it'll be Dalton Connect. We were all over him last time Rui was out, and he absolutely smashed. So I would love him in this matchup, and I'd definitely get a decent amount of him.
Yeah. What's weird, and this feels like a race thing, but I promise it's not. If Rui gets ruled out and Connect plays, I like Reeves less. But if Rui plays and Connect isn't going to see as many minutes, I like Reeves tonight. And part of that is just because Reeves has a higher usage rate, and Connect, he's doing stuff while he's out there. He has a higher usage rate, and he's taken away from guys like Reeves. Whereas we've seen Reeves has been looking pretty good here lately. From a DFS standpoint, not as strong, but at 7,100 in a really soft matchup, for now, with Rui questionable, assuming he plays, I plan on being over the field on Austin Reeves. And part of this, too, is that by me being over the field on guys like LeBron and AD, you can say that lets you pivot if Rui gets ruled out, but that's not really a pivot spot. But with me forcing exposure to Reeves, I can pivot off of Reeves to Connect and then adjust the rest of my lineup if Rui gets ruled out. So I'm not really, no, I guess I am kind of forcing exposure to this game just because I like Reeves in this spot, but then also I like the Connect play a lot if Rui gets ruled out. So 30% man Austin Reeves, and I might increase it to 40 depending on how these lines continue to look as we go down. And then LeBron James and AD I'm significantly over the field on. Borderline core plays, both of them. I'll just have to decide which one I want to go with, but I think they're both in a fantastic spot. My brain tells me at some point LeBron's going to start to suck again, but he isn't, so it's a thing. Anything else you want to add here before we go to questions?
Nope.
All right, let's see. There's quite a few here. Is the DOM process to build your single entry lines? No, Joel. So the DOM station for me, I am using to MME. I think if you're playing single entry, you should probably hand build, and you can use the DOM station to look at ownership and just kind of see how people are making lines. But I think you should just make your own choices if you're making single entry lines. What's your thought process here, though, Brandon? I know you're the single entry goat.
Yeah, I always hand build my single entries. If you do want to use the DOM station, one thing you can do is just like run it raw, see who's popping the most, and kind of use it as a guideline to help start out your line.
Makes sense to me. Buckeyes said on the notes for over the field, should we double the field or slightly over the field? I have no idea what this means. Is this like Madness and Mutts notes that they do?
Yeah, on the cheat sheets, they have whether they're over or under. I always say it's just your preference and what you're comfortable with being. I don't think they mean like a certain amount.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're trying to force you to double. The leverage plays that Brennan and I alternate doing, we give specific percentages that we recommend for that. That will be done around 6:30 to 6:45. So we'll have that ready. But yeah, for those notes, just giving general advice on what they're doing. Mega Royal said Josh Green starting at 3,500. Did you give Josh Green any thought process?
If he's starting, I wouldn't mind some shots on him.
Yeah, why is he starting? Someone, let me look at this. Do we have a starting lineup? Is it because Trey's out? Yeah, looks like we've gotten some news. Karis LeVert's out. Okoro's out. That's good, potentially. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen that he's starting yet. Have you?
Nope.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, so I wouldn't take it to heart quite yet. But I mean, it wouldn't shock me if maybe we get the news that Man's out. But for now, I'm not doing anything there. Thomas Dye said going Miles Bridges. All right, man. Yeah, we're with you there.
I like it.
I agree. Okay, said Mobley or Jaylen Brown. For me, I'm not playing either. But who do you like, Brandon?
Jaylen for sure.
And then he said DFS or Zaire. I'm over the field on both, but I would lean DFS. Ugh, sounds great.
Yep.
Yeah.
DFS for me as well.
Golly, those names are tough. Josiah, who is the most optimal player out of the Brooklyn-Charlotte game? All the shitty net guys. Like, I think we see quite a few lines of at least like one or two of those guys in there. For me, most optimal is going to be Schroeder, but DFS is right up there with him. JM said, thought on Musa. If he starts, does he become viable? Brandon, I'm going to pass this one to you because I have no idea who we're talking about here.
If he starts, I'll give him some consideration, but he's another iffy value play, so I wouldn't go too crazy on him.
Oh, yeah, Diabate. Okay, see, I know last names. First names, they're strangers to me. I just know last names. Yeah, I would not get cute playing bigs from the Hornets. They all are awful besides the two that are hurt, and Nick Richards and Mark Williams. So they just do a rotation. These guys don't see a lot of minutes. They definitely can have spikes. Like Diabate has a decent usage rate. His floor is not bad at 4,200, but he's not someone I would force exposure to. And if he starts, same thing. I wouldn't force exposure there. Is bigs against the Hornets still a thing? What do you think, Brandon?
I mean, I think anything against the Hornets is still a thing. So
yeah,
I'd say yes.
I mean, the tough thing is the Nets have been playing Ben all over the place, but primarily at the 5. And so technically I'm playing bigs against the Hornets, but I don't want to say Ben Simmons is like a real big. That feels like I'm giving him too much credit. But I mean, yeah, I am forcing exposure to him tonight. Thomas said nervous about the Schroeder core, but rolling with it. I get it, man. Those Nets guys don't feel good. David said, who is better, Castle or Champagny? GK, GPP. I would go Cham. Let me think about it. Who are you thinking, Brandon? Castle?
Yeah, I was gonna say I lean to Castle. They're very similar in upside, but I do slightly lean to him.
Yeah, Castle. His minutes floor is slightly more consistent. They're almost, when you look at their, like, even if you look at the DS, their points per minute's almost identical. Their projections barely different. But yeah, I would go to Castle. But honestly, I don't like either unless Vassell's out. What's your guys' average fantasy points? Jonathan, I never think about that. Every slate's different. Fantasy points really doesn't matter. People really get on their high horse about high scores or low scores, and it really does not matter. Like, at all.
This is all we care about right here. Exposures.
Yeah, so I have exposure
guys where we want this right here, the fantasy points.
Does not
Don't put too much thought into it.
Yeah, it's just, you're going to drive yourself crazy like that. KG said, is Kyrie the best pivot off of Murray chalk? What do you think here, Brandon?
I don't like that game really, but I mean, he has essentially no ownership, so I guess yes. Is it a good pivot? Not for me.
Yeah,
unless Luka is ruled out, but then he'd probably be chalky at that point.
Yeah, if Luka gets ruled out, then Murray might end up being the pivot to Kyrie. But I think the best pivot, I mean, they're pricey, is the guys we talked about, Garland and Mitchell. They're the guys I would look at there. for if you're trying to get pivots. And maybe LaMelo, but I don't love it. I think it's really the Cavs guards and nobody else. Is DFS a single entry play? What's your thought process here, Brandon?
He is, and he will be in mine.
Yeah, he's in the vast majority of my line, so he'll probably make it there. But I don't feel one way or the other, to be honest, Mr. 5. Good to see you, though. Good to see you. OG said, hello, everybody. What have I missed? And how's our friend Bobby Wow doing? I think he's solid, man. I think he's solid. I haven't heard from him in a bit, but I should see him on Friday. He hasn't let us know that he's not going to make it, so I think he'll be solid. Don Juan said, best core for single entry. For me, it's probably whatever core I'm using, which is going to be on DFS's website under the cheat sheet section. And do you feel the same way, Brandon?
Yep, I was going to say, if you want the answer to that, check out the cheat sheet.
Yeah, it's hit or miss on when I will answer that question or not. There is no consistency there, but today it's going to be a go to the website day. KG said, any love for Brandon Clark? What's your thought process there, Brandon?
No.
Yeah, I have to double check. He is not showing up for me at all. And I am very comfortable with that. I mean, we know the matchup's a bit softer. He has been seeing 20 plus minutes at 3,800. Not awful. Looks like he's seeing some decent ownership too. I just don't love it. And so I'm not going to force him in. So yeah, don't love it. Kinsley Moments said, on a slate, what's considered a low-owned pivot for single entry only? For me, a low-owned pivot play in single entry is usually anyone that's like 10% owned or lower. But what do you think? I think you could make an argument for 15 too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. 10% or lower is what I consider low on. When you start to get above that, then that's when it starts to get chalky.
Yeah. Like on a slate like yesterday, you can make an argument for like 15% where there's less games. But once you get to 6 games, it's usually 10% or lower. Looks like Williams with you. He likes the bigs for Dallas tonight. Yep. Yeah, one of them are smashing. That doesn't shock me. It would not shock me if one of them smash. I just have no idea which one, and so I don't want to force it.
Hopefully Lively. He's the best one. Maybe one day they'll get that. Okay, said Lou Dort, Simmons, or Big Al in that price range for high dollar. Oh, that's painful. Who are you looking at there, Brandon? It would be between Dort and Simmons. Simmons has the better matchup, but I feel like Dort has been a little more consistent than Simmons, so I would lean him.
Yeah, same. I would lean Dort. If Simmons was lower owned, I would lean towards Simmons, but you never know what you're going to get out of that guy. So Lou Dort makes a bit more sense for the high dollar consistency. Williams said they need point differential for the cup, so blowouts shouldn't be a huge issue. Agreed. That's kind of like the main thought process there, but you still never know. These teams do weird shit for no reason. Appreciate you, okay, or KG for that. Richard said, hey guys, can you give me 2 core plays, any position for single entry, please and thank you. See, Richard, that I'm more open to doing. I'll give you 2, but no more, no less. What about you, Brandon? Who are you looking at?
I mentioned a couple already throughout the breakdown, but let's see, what 2 do I want to say? I'll say DFS and Clarkson.
Yeah, and then I'll go Sarge as a core, and then I'm pretty sure our cores are usually the same, so I don't want to give someone that you didn't say already, so I'll just say Clarkson, Sarge and Clarkson. Levert out, appreciate that, KG. Kanger, always on top of it, man. Good to see you. Jake said Tatum's gonna nuke Cleveland, assert Eastern Conference dominance. All right, Jake, tell me you're a Boston fan about tell me you're a Boston fan. Raheem said, I think the same. Yeah, I think we all like Tatum tonight. I don't disagree. Clarkson or Drew Holiday, DK, GPP. What's your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Clarkson is a core play, so I'll be rolling with him. Although I do like Drew tonight too.
Yeah, I don't like Drew as much, but yeah, I would lean towards Clarkson. And I don't mean lean, I would just play Clarkson there. William said, this game blew up last season. LeBron, AD, Markkanen, and Collin all smashed. Yeah. Yeah, it would not shock me if that happens again, but I'm really just focusing on the Lakers primarily. Raheem Davis said, will y'all be backloading lines for the Rui news? I think I touched on this, but I'm pretty sure you asked this question before. I'm forcing exposure to Reeves to allow me to do that if I need to, but that's just kind of like my thought process. What do you think, Brandon?
I honestly I won't do anything too crazy. I might just put like a 10% on Connect just to have some. And then if we get that news later on, I'll just try to late swap to get whatever I can, but at least I'll have some.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I'm not doing anything extra.
William said, one of AD and LeBron in all of my lines. I don't hate that approach. I literally have 50% LeBron, 47% AD, and I'm probably going to end up boosting one of them to around 60%. I just haven't made a call yet. Okay, said Big Al or Lugents. Is Lugents Lou Dort's full name?
Yep.
God, poor man. Poor man. Yeah, it's going to be Lou Dort. What's up, Tattoo? Good to see you, man. Yeah, no worries. Basie or Collins for single entry? I would go Collins. Who are you looking at?
Collins.
Yep. Okay, so targets from the first game each side. For me, it's Mitchell and Tatum. What are your thoughts, Brandon?
Yep, I have quite a few pieces from both sides, but I'd say those are the top two for sure.
All right. Loyalty said, how much % of the money is on the Hornets tonight? I don't know what you're asking. Do you, Brandon?
I don't.
I don't have money on this game yet. I might after the show. But as of right now, I don't have any money on this game outside of DFS. So, yeah. Snow Talk said, should I go 25% men on Ball, Miller, and Bridges, all three of them, or pick one or two? For me, it would depend on how many lines you're playing, man. I personally have a 20% men on Miller, 15% men on Bridges, and a 13% men on Williams. I didn't force exposure to Melo. I think we're both kind of taking a small fade there. I am naturally a little bit closer to field weight. Well, actually, now I'm at 10%. So that's just going down the further we go on the show. But what are your thoughts here, Brandon?
Yeah, no men for me on Ball. I'm at 1%, which is a bit scary, but I'm a big risk taker, so I'll live with it if he smashes. But here's my men's I forced on Williams, Miller, and Bridges. 10 on Grant, 20 on Miller, and 10 on Bridges.
Yeah, I made that 20% men on Miller sound like my idea, but it was Brandon's, and I just copied it. So, yeah. That's what I did there. Dixon said, does anyone know if the hoes will be at the games tonight? Dixon, I feel like if you think about prime games, that's usually where they are. Lakers games, they're always there too. These other games, you're just hit or miss depending on what women these basketball players are dealing with. So you never really know. That's the short answer. Phil's busy said, awesome work as usual, guys. Oh, appreciate you, man. Yeah, see you at the top too. It's okay. You're a DFS Army guy, so yeah, more than happy to see you at the top. If it was anyone else that's not DFS Army, then it's a little bit more like ideally underneath and not above, but it's all up. William said Ty Jerome and Niang season now. Yeah, we should talk about the Cavs.
Sam Merrill is starting. I just saw that.
God, this team is disgusting. So yeah, when you look at the Cavs now, we know that LeVert and Okoro are both out. That does make some of these guys slightly more viable. I know you mentioned Ty Jerome earlier. Are you still excited about him?
I wouldn't say excited, but I will have some exposure to him now.
Fair. Very, very fair. Let me think about this a little bit. So, two guys who suck are out, but they're good defenders. In a game that should be pretty high scoring. I should force exposure here. Sam Merle, I do think we'll see some ownership at 3,200. He's someone that I do want exposure to just because of the high game total, and he should start. I hate it. I absolutely hate it as a play, especially with the core four from this team still being and playing and being healthy. But the 3,200 price tag should make for some pretty unique lines that I don't think too many people are going to be able to have or afford. And so that's part of why I like forcing exposure to him. Ty Jerome, you can make a similar argument for. I think he has upside at 4,200. I would just like him a bit more if there were players who were actually good on offense out. So I'm going to force exposure to him too, though. I think I'm probably going to look at like 10, 15%, something like that. But I don't love it. As you can tell, I'm not happy about it. It's just what has to be done on this slate. So here I am. All right. Dixon said, was there anything else you wanted to add there? You good?
Nope.
Okay. Dixon said, I'm checking the Twitter streets as we speak. I hear you, man. Okay, said, how would you play the 3,100 versus the $15? If you're talking single entry, more money I'm spending. Honestly, I don't treat it differently at all. But in theory, you should have 1 to 2 safer plays or 1 to 2 low owned plays in really both. If you're playing single entry, you can play the chalk, but you want to get different in 1 to 2 spots. That's the philosophy across the board. The less money you spend, the crazier you can get. You can maybe even do 2 to 3 switches. The more money you spend, the more safe you want those leverage plays to be.
Yep.
Just going through these questions. I think we're almost through. James said, when you say that you're over the field on a player, what percentage do you go over? Example, if a player is 30% owned, do you go like 40%? JM, for me, it just literally means I'm over the field on them. But I remember earlier I said I'm over the field on LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but I'm like significantly over the field on them. That's usually when I'm like at least 15 to 20% over, if not double. So that's kind of what I mean by that. But what's your thought process there, Brandon?
Yeah, it varies. So just to stick with that same example, like I'm over the field on LeBron. He's showing 35% ownership. I'm at 43. So there's no like specific percentages that I mean when I say that, and it varies depending on the player. And Dort too, 22% owned. I'm at 40. So over the field on him. Murphy 3% over. So as you can see, it really depends on who it is and what the price is. It varies throughout.
Jay Blaze, yeah, I'll have it done by 6:45. We'll be ready to rock and roll. Appreciate that. Steve, I wouldn't say he's a lock. Would you, Brandon?
Probably close to it.
Close to it. A lock. Okay, there we go. All right, making me think I might need to have a little bit more exposure to him. We'll see. We'll get there. If you're a DFS Army member, we will update the cheat sheets and you'll see who our core plays for us. And then also, if you're in the Discord, you can ask us. And once we have a little bit more time to think it over and see how projections update, we'll be able to give you a more transparent answer there. But right now, I'm still waiting for it to update for me.
Yep, same here.
Dixon said, is this Cavs game blowout percentage just go up with Okoro and LeVert out, or nah? Merle can sink threes. I'm not worried about a blowout in that game. Are you?
Nope.
Tattoo. Favorite low-owned guys is Mitchell. Who's yours?
I'll piggyback that as well.
Yeah, I just think that's the best one on the slate. And yeah. Appreciate you though, Tattoo. Hope you're doing all right, man. Julian said Jay Huff on FanDuel as value center. That would be a hard pass for me, man. What about you, Brandon?
Yep, I don't think I could do that.
Sweet. All right, y'all. Appreciate the support. If y'all could hit the like button, help the big man who owns this company realize that people are watching and paying attention, especially on non-NFL slates, is always helpful. If you hate what we do, that's fine too. I'm not mad at you. But I appreciate the support. And like I always say, I hope you all crush and we can celebrate in the Discord tonight and we have a good one. Peace out, y'all. Big.
Sheesh. Yeah, big time. Knowing that.